Last night, the Memphis Grizzlies defeated the Dallas Mavericks 102 to 96. It was a close game, but the headline of this game was really how it ended with Klay Thompson and Morant going at each other with words. And what really triggered that was the Grizzlies were up 99 to 96 with I think 20 some seconds left. So the Mavericks called a timeout and they gave the ball to Klay Thompson to tie the game. Klay took a long 30-foot 3-point shot and it easily missed. It was an ugly shot that was way off. Grizzlies proceeded to win the game. And then at the end of the game, Morant calls Klay Thompson a bum. Klay gets emotional. He says some stuff back to him, and Josh just laughing at him, taunting him. And it's even funnier when there was a player from the Grizzlies being interviewed at the end of the game. I think it's Cam Spencer. I mix his name up with his brother, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But they interviewed Spencer at the end of the game, and then Ja immediately comes into that interview and yells, "Best shooter in the game, best shooter in the game." Basically, just rubbing it in indirectly at Klay, taking that shot. So I thought that was pretty funny. I'm gonna read some of these quotes from Klay after the game when asked about this incident. "Nothing of intelligent depth," Thompson said. "It was really just him running his mouth, and he's been running his mouth for a long time. It's funny to run your mouth when you're on the bench. Kind of the story of his career so far, just leaving us wanting more. We all want to see him out there and do his best, but he's just been letting a lot of other stuff get in the way of that. We need that in the NBA. We need our best players out there. And when you're a star, it comes with a great responsibility. And I hate to see that go to waste." A lot of people are giving Klay, big ups for being the bigger man. They're saying he's been the bigger man in all of this. And Ja and company, they're just a bunch of immature, young punks and whatnot. And I'm going to say I disagree with that to some degree. I'm not going to say that Ja is an immature or a punk, but I'm not going to agree with Klay Thompson being this innocent bystander in this incident, that he was like some kind of victim when he clearly wasn't. I think it's important to know the history between Klay and this current Grizzlies team, like his history with Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. A lot of people forget there was an incident a few years ago during the 2021-2022 NBA season, the last season where the Warriors won a championship, in which during the regular season the Grizzlies beat the Warriors. And then Jaren Jackson tweeted a tweet after the winning against the Warriors in the regular season saying there's strength in numbers. And that doesn't seem like it's a big deal. It seems like an innocent tweet, nothing heinous about it anyway that should piss you off, but apparently it rubbed Klay Thompson the wrong way. So, as you know, the Warriors did beat the Grizzlies in the playoffs that year, and they went to the NBA Finals to win it all. After they won it all, Klay Thompson then brought it up how there was a player on the Grizzlies that tweeted strength in numbers after they lost during the regular season, and that really angered him. And that player was a bum, and that he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. All this other garbage. He ran his mouth. If you don't believe me, you can find that clip. It's there. It's been viral a few times, and we all know he was referring to Jaren Jackson Jr. To me, it was kind of funny, like how Klay took that so personal. He had to insult Jaren Jackson Jr. over that tweet after winning the championship. But that to me really shows how Klay is what I call Mr. Fragility. This guy is very fragile. He's very emotional. He's always been a front runner. Like, I think people always forget this guy's a front runner because he's a pothead and people like him because he's so fucking mellow, that they forget he's also a front runner. Like, that's one of the reasons I never like Klay. He's a guy who likes to talk a lot of shit when he's winning, but when he's not winning, he has a meltdown and he can't take it when guys come back at him. It's like, it's pretty funny. One of the examples of this I can really bring up, I think everyone knows this, because in the 2016 finals, when he was up 3-1 against the Cavs, he was running his mouth about LeBron. And I say this, I'm not a LeBron fan either, so I can be objective about this, but he was running his mouth. And LeBron was emotional at the end of, I think it was game 5, he had that meltdown, which allowed Draymond to well, he baited Draymond and Draymond hit him in his nuts and then he got suspended. I remember Clay just laughing about that in the post game, saying, "Well, I guess he's sensitive, you know. Some guys are sensitive and he's just one of those guys and he's just, he's just that way, you know. Some guys are just not strong enough to take that type of stuff." And then we saw Clay having a meltdown right after the Warriors lost that series. Like, heck, he had a meltdown heading into training camp after they lost that series, in which he didn't like some of the stuff that was written about him and his teammates and what some people had said within the organization during that collapse, where he's like, "Hey, who said that stuff about us? I want to know who he is. I want to know names." So this guy has always been Mr. Fragility. He's always a Mr. Front Runner. Like, I can agree with him that Ja is immature. I've said that so many times on my channel, but Clay, you're also immature. You're also very petty. You remember things. You remember slights for long periods of time. You're no different than this guy. Like, and you got to understand that you opened yourself up to this. Like, whenever you insult somebody, especially in this era, in the digital era, it's there forever. It's like ink. It never goes away. You can't erase it. It's there for everybody's memory that you insulted this person. And people are very petty in this era. So if you insulted somebody even 5, 6 years ago, it's online, and if they feel that they can strike back at you for that insult, they will do it. They'll wait for the time period when you're weak and you're down, and then they will strike back at you. That's just how this game goes. I'm not saying that Ja would not have done the same thing had Clay never said those things. He probably could have still said what he said, but most likely he wouldn't. It's the way you carry yourself. I always believe that you shouldn't be trying to make enemies. That's something my father taught me, that you don't try to make enemies. You don't just insult people for insulting people. You want to minimize how many enemies you have in your life. You can't control who's going to be your enemy. There's some people who will become your enemy regardless of what you do, but you want to make sure you didn't create your enemies. And that's what Clay did by saying what he said several years ago, a few years ago, that is. Like, he brought this on himself. Like, he was never classy. Him and Draymond, when the Warriors are winning, they rubbed as much salt as possible, which isn't right, but you can say that they have the right to do that. You know, when you're winning, you can get away with whatever, fine. But you got to accept it that once you lose, you're going to have to cash in on those receipts. You're going to have to deal with people coming back at you. It works the same way. And like I said, I'm not saying that people won't come at you if you're classy when you win, but you have less likely situations like this occurring. I look at the Spurs. When they were winning championships with Duncan, they were not arrogant douchebags. Hence why when they weren't winning, you didn't see guys really come at them like this or come at them with this vitriol. Like, you never saw guys really going hard against Tim Duncan or Manu, Tony, because those guys didn't conduct themselves like douchebags when they were winning. Granted, you had some guys every now and then that would come at Tim, like DeMarcus Cousins, but it was very rare. And even when guys did come at them, they actually looked bad because people were saying, like, "Hey, what did these guys ever do to deserve this? They never disrespected you. Show them some respect. They were once champions." But it's the way you carry yourself that's going to affect you long term when it comes to when people treat you. That's just how it is in life, that you got to be careful when you're on top not to treat people like shit, because you never know when you're down later on when people will come back right at you. You know, people are going to remember this. They're going to remember how you acted when you were in a position of power. And if you can't maintain it, well, they're going to come after you like sharks. That's just how the game goes. So you got to accept it. I think Clay is very fragile about this. He's not good at accepting this, that if you talk a lot of shit, expect people to come back at you when they have that opportunity. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this.